"You're so lucky to have such thoughtful children," the hotel concierge said, as my son signed the paperwork with a flourish that should have been my first warning. David's smile was too bright, too practiced, as he pocketed the receipt for a room I'd supposedly chosen but had never seen. It felt like a performance, and I was a captive audience. Within hours, I discovered just how thoughtful this trip to Italy really was. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 3 months after Robert's funeral, I was still grappling with the silence, the emptiness of a home built for two. 42 years of marriage doesn't just end with a burial service, it leaves an echoing void. Despite what my son David and his wife Lisa seemed to think, the grief counselor had suggested I was navigating the loss, as well as could be expected, whatever that meant in the grand scheme of things. Apparently, not dissolving into tears while choosing between russet potatoes and Yukon Golds qualified as progress. "Mom, you need to get away," David had declared during one of his increasingly frequent visits to my house in Portland. "You've been cooped up here since Dad died. It's not healthy." Lisa nodded enthusiastically from my kitchen, where she'd been reorganizing my spice rack with the unsettling zeal of someone staging a property. "We've been talking, and we think a change of scenery would do you wonders. Maybe Europe. Italy is beautiful this time of year." I should have been suspicious when Lisa championed Italy. The woman who considered anything spicier than ketchup an exotic culinary adventure suddenly had strong opinions about Renaissance art and Tuscan sunsets. But grief makes you vulnerable to kindness, even the manufactured variety. "I don't know," I'd said, my gaze drifting around the living room where Robert and I had shared countless mornings over steaming cups of coffee and the daily news. "Traveling alone seems daunting at this stage." "Who said anything about alone?" David's grin had been the same one he'd worn as a child when he was about to plead for the latest video game. "Lisa and I need a vacation too. We could all go together, make it a family trip." The word family still resonated deeply within me then, a comforting promise of unity and shared love. Funny how quickly that illusion shatters when you uncover the truth behind the facade. Now, standing in the opulent marble lobby of the Hotel Bellman Villa San Michele in Florence, I watched David hand over my credit card to settle the bill for what he referred to as our family suite. The concierge looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, a blend of pity and perhaps a hint of warning, the kind reserved for older women whose children seem to be managing their lives with an unsettling degree of control. "Senora Sullivan," the concierge said in carefully enunciated English, "your son has arranged for you to have the most peaceful room, very quiet, very private, perfect for resting." Something cold settled in my stomach, a premonition that this trip wasn't what it seemed. I'd specifically mentioned wanting a room with a view, a window onto the vibrant cityscape. Instead, I was being offered seclusion and silence. How thoughtful, indeed. The peaceful room turned out to be in the hotel's oldest wing, down a hallway that seemed to swallow sound. My window offered a view of an unremarkable interior courtyard, instead of the rolling Tuscan hills I'd been led to expect. When I raised this with David at dinner, he dismissed my concerns with practiced ease. "Mom, you're always complaining about noise keeping you awake. This way, you can rest properly." Since when did I complain about noise? I'd lived next to a bustling street for 2 decades without a single sleepless night. But Lisa was nodding in agreement, as though David had unearthed some profound truth about my supposed aversion to sound. "Besides," Lisa added, meticulously dissecting her veal cutlet, "you'll want to be well rested for tomorrow. We have appointments." "What kind of appointments?" David and Lisa exchanged a glance that lingered just a fraction too long. In my former life, the one where I blindly trusted them, I might have overlooked it. But 3 months of solitude had sharpened my senses, making me acutely aware of subtle cues. "Just some paperwork," David said, his tone overly casual, that deliberate nonchalance that screamed, "I'm concealing something." "Dad left some assets here in Italy. Remember his business dealings with that vineyard investment group? We need to sort out the tax implications." I didn't remember any vineyard investments. Robert had always been transparent about our finances. After 42 years of marriage, I knew every stock, bond, and savings account we possessed. Yet here was David, speaking with authority about obscure Italian assets I'd never heard of. "Wouldn't it be simpler to handle this through our accountant back home?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "The Italian government requires in-person verification," Lisa said smoothly. "Something about anti-money laundering laws. Very bureaucratic, but necessary." For someone who'd never expressed the slightest interest in international finance, Lisa was remarkably well-versed in Italian banking regulations, almost suspiciously so. That night, I lay in my peaceful room, the silence amplifying my unease. Through the thin walls, I could hear David and Lisa conversing in hushed tones in their adjacent room. I pressed my ear to the wall, a clandestine skill honed during David's teenage years when I'd felt the need to monitor his late-night phone calls. "Tomorrow morning at 9, Lisa's voice was barely audible. "Has to sign everything herself." David's response was even fainter. "Won't understand what she's—" The rest was drowned out by the sound of running water. They'd deliberately turned on the shower, cutting off my accidental eavesdropping. But I'd heard enough to confirm my growing suspicions. This trip wasn't about bereavement or family bonding. It was about paperwork I wouldn't comprehend, signed by a woman they perceived as too vulnerable and grief-stricken to question their motives. I awoke to my phone vibrating with a text from an unknown number. The message was terse and unsettling. "Leave now. They are not to be trusted." For a moment, I stared at the screen, questioning my sanity. Who would send such a message? And why now, in Florence, thousands of miles from the familiar comfort of home? Before I could fully process it, David knocked on my door. "Mom, ready for breakfast? We need to leave soon for our appointment." I slipped the phone into my purse and opened the door. David was impeccably dressed in his most expensive suit, the one he typically reserved for crucial business meetings, not routine paperwork. He was clearly taking this charade very seriously. At breakfast, Lisa repeatedly glanced at her watch and nervously fidgeted with her coffee cup. She radiated an anxiety that she desperately tried to conceal. David, meanwhile, steered the conversation towards my supposed mental decline since Robert's death. "You haven't been yourself lately, Mom," he said, buttering his croissant with excessive precision. "Forgetting appointments, mixing up dates. It's completely normal for someone your age, especially after a loss like Dad." I'd forgotten one doctor's appointment since Robert passed, and that was due to the clinic changing the time without notifying me. But David painted a picture of impending dementia. "The grief counselor says it's common for widows to experience cognitive difficulties," Lisa added helpfully, "particularly with financial matters. It's actually dangerous for you to be making important decisions right now." How thoughtful of Lisa to suddenly express concern for my well-being. This was the same woman who had barely spoken to me at Robert's funeral, too busy currying favor with his business associates to offer genuine condolences to his widow. My phone buzzed again. Another text. "Search your room. They have been searching through your belongings." This time, I excused myself to use the restroom and read the message more closely. The sender remained anonymous, but the urgency compelled me to act. I returned to the table, finished my coffee, and told David and Lisa that I needed to retrieve something from my room before we departed. "We'll come with you," David said instantly. "I'm perfectly capable of walking to my own room, David." "Of course you are, Mom. I simply meant we could all head up together, save time." But I was already moving towards the elevator, and something in my demeanor must have discouraged them from following. In my room, I surveyed the scene carefully. Initially, everything appeared undisturbed. Then I noticed subtle discrepancies. My suitcase zipper was positioned slightly differently than I remembered. My toiletries were arranged in a subtly altered order, and my purse had been moved a fraction of an inch on the nightstand. Someone had definitely been searching my possessions. The crucial question was why. My phone buzzed a third time. "The appointment is a ruse. They intend for you to sign over everything. Robert's friend Elena knows the truth. Trust absolutely no one else." Elena, Robert's esteemed business partner from his consulting days, the woman who had sent the most exquisite flowers to his funeral. If Elena was issuing this stark warning, I had to take it with utmost seriousness. She had known Robert longer than I had, understood his business dealings on a level I never fully grasped. I made a decision that would have seemed unimaginable just hours earlier. I was going to heed the advice of a stranger and disappear. Evading David and Lisa required a level of strategic maneuvering I hadn't employed since orchestrating surprise birthday celebrations for Robert. Fortunately, years of managing household logistics had equipped me with skills I never imagined applying to espionage. I feigned feeling unwell, claiming I needed to rest before the appointment. Lisa's immediate concern was almost convincing. If I hadn't suspected it was motivated by fear of delaying their plans. "Should we postpone?" David inquired, although his tone suggested that would be immensely inconvenient. No, I said, clutching my stomach dramatically. "Just give me an hour. Perhaps some fresh air will help. I might take a brief stroll in the gardens." The hotel gardens provided an ideal escape route. I walked the perimeter once, establishing a predictable pattern for anyone who might be observing, then slipped through a side gate that opened onto a bustling street. Florence in September was teeming with tourists, making it relatively easy to become lost in the throng. I found a cafe 3 blocks away and ordered a coffee while attempting to process the morning's revelations. My phone rang. Elena's name appeared on the screen. "Margaret, thank heavens you received my messages." "Elena, how did you get this number, and how did you know where I was?" "David contacted me last week, inquiring about Robert's Italian investments. When I informed him that Robert had never made any Italian investments, he became extremely interested in what assets Robert did possess. Too interested. A wave of nausea washed over me. What kind of questions was he asking? About our retirement accounts, our life insurance policies, the house? He wanted to know if Robert had placed everything in joint accounts or if there were assets solely in your name. When I told him that the majority of Robert's estate passed directly to you, he began to inquire about your mental state." The coffee tasted acrid in my mouth. "My mental state?" "He claimed you had been exhibiting signs of dementia, becoming confused about finances. He wondered if I believed you were capable of managing such a substantial inheritance independently." Everything clicked into place with chilling clarity. David hadn't brought me to Italy for closure or family bonding. He had brought me here to sign documents that would transfer my inheritance to him, using my alleged mental incapacity as justification. "Elena, what do you know about Italian law regarding financial guardianship?" There was a brief pause. "Enough to know that if you are declared mentally incompetent in Italy and sign the appropriate documents, your son could gain control of your assets back in the United States. It's intricate, but not impossible with the right legal representation." I closed my eyes, feeling the immense weight of betrayal crushing me. They have been planning this meticulously. I fear so. The appointment this morning isn't about Robert's fictitious investments. It's about having you declared incompetent and signing guardianship papers. My hands trembled as I gripped the phone. What course of action should I take? First, do not return to that hotel. They will be searching for you imminently. Second, seek refuge at the American consulate. Third, contact your lawyer back home immediately. As if on cue, my phone began to vibrate incessantly with calls from David. I declined each one. The American consulate in Florence occupies a magnificent Renaissance building that under normal circumstances would have captivated my attention. Today, it felt like a fortress, and I was seeking sanctuary within its walls. The consular officer, a perceptive woman named Patricia Mills, listened to my story with an air of professional detachment that suggested she had encountered similar situations before. "Unfortunately, this is not uncommon," she said after I had finished recounting the events. "Adult children targeting elderly parents' assets, particularly after the death of a spouse. The fact that they brought you to a foreign country implies that they recognized they could not easily accomplish this in the United States. So, what they are planning is legal? Not entirely. If you have not been formally declared mentally incompetent by a court and you are signing documents under false pretenses, that constitutes fraud. The challenge lies in proving you were coerced or misled." She assisted me in contacting my attorney in Portland, a competent man named James, who had handled Robert's will and our estate planning. When I explained the situation, his reaction was immediate and indignant. "Margaret, Under no circumstances are you to sign anything. Remain exactly where you are. I am contacting our Italian legal partners and flying out tonight." While I waited for James to work his magic from thousands of miles away, Patricia shed light on what David and Lisa had likely orchestrated. The documents they wanted me to sign would designate David as my financial guardian, granting him control over my bank accounts, investments, and property. Once that was accomplished in Italy, they could utilize the Italian court order to gain control of my assets in the United States. "It's quite ingenious, actually," Patricia admitted grimly. "Italian courts are sometimes more inclined to grant emergency guardianship orders, especially when family members present evidence of mental decline. And since you are a tourist here, you would lack local support or legal representation." "Evidence of mental decline?" Patricia retrieved a file. "I have made some inquiries. Your son and daughter-in-law have been building a case against you. They have spoken to your neighbors, your doctor, even the grocery store clerk, documenting instances of supposed confusion or forgetfulness." My stomach plummeted. Mrs. Henderson next door, she mentioned that David had asked her about my behavior recently. "They have been very thorough. The hotel staff was also briefed about your condition. You were placed in that isolated room so they could argue that you were disoriented and in need of constant supervision." The scope of their deception was astonishing. This wasn't a spontaneous decision driven by grief or financial hardship. This was a meticulously planned campaign to strip me of my independence and my inheritance. My phone rang again. David, as expected. "Answer it," Patricia advised, "but keep the conversation brief. Do not reveal your location." "Mom, where are you? We have been worried sick." David's voice was carefully calibrated between concern and irritation. Had I not known the truth, I might have felt guilty for causing such distress. "I am fine, David. I needed some time to gather my thoughts." "Time to think about what?" "Mom, you are frightening us. It is unlike you to simply vanish." "Is it? Or perhaps you simply do not know me as well as you thought." There was a pause. When David spoke again, his tone had subtly shifted. "Mom, I think the grief may be clouding your judgment. You are not thinking rationally." There it was, the foundation for their narrative of mental incompetence. "My thinking is perfectly clear, David. In fact, it is clearer than it has been in months." I hung up and turned off my phone. James arrived in Florence 18 hours later, looking disheveled and sustained by airplane coffee. He had brought reinforcements, an Italian lawyer named Giuseppe Toretti who specialized in international family law. "The good news," Giuseppe told me over lunch at a restaurant near the consulate, "is that you have not signed anything yet. The bad news is that your son has already filed preliminary paperwork with the court claiming you are mentally incompetent and in need of emergency guardianship." "Can they do that without my presence?" "In extreme circumstances, yes. He is claiming that you disappeared due to dementia-related confusion and that your mental state poses a danger to yourself and others." James shook his head in disbelief. "It's demonstrably false, but the burden will now be on us to prove your competency." "There's more," Giuseppe continued. "We have discovered that this is not your son's first attempt at gaining access to your assets. He has been making inquiries about having you declared incompetent in Oregon for the past 2 months." The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. 2 months? But Robert only passed away 3 months ago. "I am sorry, Margaret," James said gently. "It appears that he began planning this almost immediately after the funeral." The timeline made horrifying sense. David's increased visits, his sudden concern about my confusion, Lisa's newfound interest in my well-being. They hadn't been assisting me in grieving. They had been gathering evidence for their case. "The appointment this morning," I said. "What was it really for?" Giuseppe extracted documents from his briefcase. "They had arranged for you to meet with a court-appointed psychiatrist who would have evaluated your mental state. Based on that evaluation, combined with the fabricated evidence they have gathered, the court would have issued an emergency guardianship order. And if you had signed those papers, you would have essentially relinquished your legal right to control your own finances. David would have become your guardian with complete authority over your estate." James leaned forward. "Margaret, there's something else. We have had your accounts audited. Someone has been making unauthorized inquiries about your financial status, bank records, investment accounts, even your life insurance policies. David, we believe, Giuseppe said. He has also been in contact with real estate agents about the potential sale of your house. The restaurant suddenly felt cramped and suffocating. My own son had been planning to sell my home, the place where I had lived with Robert for over 20 years, where every room held cherished memories of our life together. So what do we do now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Giuseppe smiled for the first time since we had met. Now we go on the offensive. We are filing for a restraining order against your son and daughter-in-law, preventing them from taking any legal action regarding your affairs. We are also filing a criminal complaint for attempted fraud. Will that be sufficient? It is a start, James said. But Margaret, you need to understand that this is going to become unpleasant. David is not going to simply apologize and walk away. When people plan something this elaborate, they do not relinquish control easily. As if to underscore his point, my phone vibrated with a text from Lisa. Regardless of the lies people are telling you, remember that we are your family. We love you and only want what is best for you. Do not let strangers turn you against the people who care about you most. I showed the message to Giuseppe, who laughed cynically. Classic manipulation. Now they are playing the victim. But I was not the same woman who had arrived in Florence 3 days prior, trusting and vulnerable. That woman had been laid to rest along with her illusions about family loyalty. The woman sitting in this restaurant, surrounded by lawyers and strategizing legal moves, was someone transformed, someone who had learned that sometimes the individuals who profess to love you the most are the ones most capable of betraying you. The real battle was just beginning. David and Lisa appeared at the consulate like actors who had meticulously rehearsed their roles. David wore his concerned son expression while Lisa dabbed at tears that seemed suspiciously manufactured. They had brought reinforcements, a well-dressed man who introduced himself as Dr. Marcus Webb, a geriatric psychiatrist. Mrs. Sullivan, Dr. Webb said in the condescending tone typically reserved for small children and individuals presumed to be cognitively impaired. Your family is deeply concerned about you, running away from your hotel, refusing to answer your phone. These behaviors suggest you may be experiencing some confusion. I almost laughed. 3 days ago, I might have been intimidated by his credentials and patronizing demeanor. Today, I simply felt weary of being underestimated. Dr. Webb, I am curious about something, I said, leaning back in my chair with the confidence of someone who had spent 2 days learning precisely how this game was played. Who is compensating you for your services? Because I certainly did not retain you. His professional smile wavered for a fleeting moment. Your son contacted me out of concern for your well-being. Interesting. And when exactly did my son first contact you? Giuseppe leaned forward, visibly enjoying watching me dismantle their carefully constructed narrative. Dr. Webb glanced at David, who suddenly became engrossed in examining his fingernails. I believe it was several weeks ago. Several weeks? I turned to David with mock surprise. But David, several weeks ago, you were still telling me how admirably I was handling Dad's passing. If you remember, you praised my strength and resilience. David's jaw tightened. Mom, you are misremembering the timeline. Am I? Because I have a very clear recollection of our conversation on August 15th. You said, and I quote, "Mom, you are amazing. I do not know how you are remaining so strong." That was precisely 3 weeks before we departed for Italy. The room fell silent. Patricia Mills, the consular officer, was taking notes with evident satisfaction. Dr. Webb looked increasingly uncomfortable as the professional foundation of his evaluation crumbled. Mrs. Sullivan, he attempted again. Sometimes family members do not immediately recognize the signs of cognitive decline. Dr. Webb, have you actually examined me, administered any cognitive tests, reviewed my medical records, or are you basing your professional opinion entirely on hearsay from individuals who stand to gain financially from declaring me incompetent? His face flushed. I was intending to conduct a proper evaluation today. How convenient. And if I had signed those guardianship papers this morning, before your evaluation, would that have been legal? Giuseppe stood up smoothly. Dr. Webb, I believe we are finished here. Mrs. Sullivan has unequivocally demonstrated her mental competency. Any further harassment of my client will result in additional legal action." As they filed out, Lisa turned back, making a final attempt at manipulation. "Mom, please consider what you are doing. We are your family. We love you." "Lisa," I said calmly, "if this is what your love looks like, I would hate to experience your hatred." That evening, James revealed the full extent of what he had discovered during his investigation. We sat in my hotel room, a different hotel far from where David and Lisa were staying, while he spread documents across the bed like evidence in a crime drama. "Margaret, this predates what we initially believed," he said, adjusting his glasses. "David began making inquiries about obtaining power of attorney over your affairs 6 months ago." 6 months? I felt the blood rush from my head. But Robert was still alive 6 months ago. Exactly. David contacted an elder law firm in Seattle, inquiring about the procedure for having a parent declared mentally incompetent. He specifically asked about situations where the parent might resist the process. Giuseppe retrieved his laptop, displaying emails David had sent to various legal firms. So what started as a supposedly thoughtful gesture, a family trip to Italy, quickly unraveled into a shocking betrayal. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the people we trust the most can be the ones capable of the greatest deception. But even in the face of such heartbreak, there's strength to be found, a resilience that emerges when we refuse to be victims. As you can see, Margaret is a fighter, and in part 2, we'll dive deeper into the legal battle ahead and see just how far David and Lisa will go to get what they want. What did you think of Margaret's story so far? Let me know in the comments. Were there any red flags you spotted earlier? Or maybe you have a similar experience you'd like to share. I'd love to hear your thoughts and answer any questions you might have. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss part 2. We're going to see Margaret stand her ground and fight for her future. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Plus, subscribing will keep you updated on all future stories. See you in the next video.